This is the network service of the NTA.
It is the task of Ndlea to stop all this unacceptable nonsense of drug abuse, drug trafficking in Nigeria. Nigeria is the only country we have. We cannot fold our arms. We can, will, and must eliminate the drug scourge.
The drug supply reduction component of the war against drug abuse had been a major thrust of the operations of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Ndlea, since the assumption of office of Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa early last year, hence the various seizure and arrests recorded so far under his leadership. This is Ndlea Today, your weekly guide on the activities of the Nigeria Anti-Drug Agency. Good to have you join us. Our focus on this episode of the program is on the historic feats recorded by the agency in its drug supply reduction efforts, as our spotlights will be dedicated to this milestone, while the Risk in It All segment of the program will be on the arrest of an ex-convict for another drug trafficking offense. News highlights, executive summary, WADA update will also come your way. So stay with us all through the program for all this and more. Once again, glad to know you're here. Welcome.
On the news highlights for this week's episode of Ndlea Today.
German embassy to collaborate with Ndlea. Mara receives the European Union delegation, canvasses more support. Naowa commends Marwa's 6 partnership with Ndlea on anti-drug war. The German embassy in Nigeria has expressed its willingness and that of its government to collaborate with the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Ndlea in its quest to rid the country of the drug scourge. This revelation was the main thrust of the meeting between officials of the German embassy and the leadership of the Ndlea at the agency's national headquarters in Abuja. The team from BKA Liaison Office, German Embassy, which was led by BK Liaison Officer Mr. Jan Ritterhoff, applauded the efforts of the Ndlea so far in delivering on its mandate and further pledged the commitment of the embassy in assisting the agency in the days ahead. On hand to receive the visitors was the agency secretary, Barrister Shedrack Harinem, who led other top officials of the agency to the meeting. He thanked the visitors for identifying with the ongoing renaissance in the Ndlea. He equally underscored the willingness of his organization to collaborate with all well-meaning individuals and organizations. The Chairman Chief Executive of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Ndlea, Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa retired, has canvassed for more support of the agency as it strives to rid the nation of the drug malaise. The Ndlea boss made the plea while receiving a delegation from the European Union led by Alexandre Borges Gum, EU Deputy Head of Delegation in Nigeria. Marwa, who received the EU team in company of top leadership of the agency at the national headquarters, acknowledged the various support received by the agency over the years from the EU. The deputy head of the delegation in Nigeria, who was accompanied by Mr. Ruben Alba, as well as the visiting European Union Commission International Affairs Officer, Mr. Eric Infante, reaffirmed the readiness of the European Union to continue to partner the NDLEA to enable it to deliver on its core mandate. Wife of the Chief of Army Staff and President of the Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association, NAOA, Mrs. Salmatu Yahaya, has pledged a commitment of the body to work with the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, to ensure a drug-free Nigeria. Mrs. Yahaya stated this when she led a delegation of the executives of NAOA on a courtesy visit to the Chairman Chief Executive Officer of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Mara, retired, at the agency's national headquarters in Abuja. In her remarks, she commended General Mara for the extraordinary achievements recorded in the NDLEA under his watch and asked for collaboration in the fight against illicit drugs. She noted that NAOA has been following the tremendous achievements recorded in the past 18 months, and as a humanitarian organization that is committed to capacity building and empowerment for its members and stakeholders, partnering with the NDLEA will be mutually beneficial as she plans to take the drug campaign to the barracks. Among the areas of partnership is the training of NAOA members and staff in early detection and identification of substance abuse, as well as how to conduct drug-free prevention programs. Others include measures to prevent drug trafficking and channels for reporting drug activities.
There is need for NAOA members and staff to get adequate training on how to detect drug users and also effective methods of sensitizing young adults and children on the dangers of trafficking and consumption of illicit drugs and other intoxicants.
In his response, Mara thanked the NAOA president and her entourage for the visit. He commended the association for the laudable initiatives under the leadership of Mrs. Yahaya, which have transformed the association. General Mara, who was once a one-time NAOA liaison officer during his military career, noted the important role the association plays in ensuring the success of career military officers. He stated that NAOA support will be required in both drug demand and drug supply reduction activities, stressing that addiction does not discriminate and can afflict any family. He encouraged NAOA to leverage on the NDLEA's 24/7 toll-free helpline, recently launched to assist drug-dependent persons seeking help without stigmatization.
One of the things we would like to request for NAOA to look into would be the establishment in barracks across the country, counseling centers, and at least, if it were possible, within some of the military hospitals, actual rehabilitation centers. I would like to say a word on the drug integrity tests. So the drug integrity tests, which we conduct certified and genuine products, is one of the recommendations we will make, even if it is for random tests.
President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated the chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa, retired, on the recent very successful operation of the agency, leading to the smashing of an international drug syndicate and recovery of 1,855 kilograms of cocaine. In a telephone call to the chairman of the Anti-Narcotic Agency from New York, where he was attending the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA 77, President Buhari said the news of the recovery gladdens his heart. At a meeting later with members of his delegation, the president said Buba Marwa is doing well. 2 tons of cocaine, that's a haul. The Ndlea had announced the highest cocaine seizure worth over $278 million, an arrest of drug barons, including a foreigner, in a major operation lasting 2 days across different locations in Lagos. Yes, it's true. Drugs are a vice in our society, costing lives and huge economic losses. But the story is not the same because the game has changed. It's a red card for drugs in Nigeria. There is a new sheriff in town. Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa is moving hard and fast with full speed and precision to rid the country of the drug scourge. Ndlea Today is a program that gives you a front seat in understanding the highs and lows, the laws of drug enforcement in the country.
Join us every Monday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. on the network service of the NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Ndlea Today. Don't miss it. In what appears to be the biggest singular cocaine seizure in the history of Nigeria's premier anti-narcotic agency, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Ndlea have busted a major warehouse in a secluded estate in Ikorodu area of Lagos, Nigeria, where 1.8 tons, equivalent to 1,855 kilograms of the illicit drug worth more than $278,250,000, equivalent of about 194,775,000,000 naira in street value were seized. At least 4 drug barons, including a Jamaican and the warehouse manager, have been arrested in the well-coordinated and intelligence-led operation that lasted 2 days across different locations in Lagos State. Kickpins of the cocaine cartel in custody include Mrs. Soji Jubril, 69, an indigene of Ibadan, Oyo State; Emmanuel Chukwu, 65, who hails from Ekulobia, Anambra State; Wasiu Akinade, 53, from Ibadan, Oyo State; Sunday Oguntelere, 53, from Okitipupa, Ondo State; and Kelvin Smith, 42, a native of Kingston, Jamaica. They are all members of an international drug syndicate that the agency has been trailing since 2018. The warehouse was raided on Sunday, 18 September, while the barons were picked from hotels and their hideouts in different parts of Lagos between Sunday night and Monday, 19 September 2022. Preliminary investigation reveals that the Class A drugs were warehoused in the residential estate from where the cartel was trying to sell them to buyers in Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world. They were stored in 10 travel bags and 13 drums. This largest single seizure in the history of the almost 4 decades agency had elicited the appreciation and commendation of many well-meaning Nigerians, especially the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, who through a phone call from New York expressed his appreciation. On his own part, Honorable Francis Otagbo of the House of Representatives had equally congratulated the Ndlea boss on the feat, while also calling for the granting of the highest national honor in the land on General Buba Marwa. Meanwhile, the Ndlea boss used the opportunity of a surprise parade organized for him by staff at the agency's headquarters to commend operatives involved in the operations, while charging the agency workforce to remain focused and extra vigilant to enable the Ndlea win the drug war at all times.
Follow! On Your Excellency, on behalf of staff, officers and men of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, I want to welcome you and congratulate you for this great feat you have just achieved. We are really happy with you, sir. Once again, congratulations, sir.
Don't congratulate me. I congratulate you, because this tremendous effort was by you all. I on my own been possible to launch investigation, tracking the operation itself, seizures, and subsequent prosecution. These assignments all fall within the ambit of the various directors and departments who work with you all here in the headquarters and the rest of our men and women in the field, in the various commands. So congratulations for a job well done. But we must not rest on our oars, because there is still a lot of work out there.
The utmost vigilance of the operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Ndlea in ensuring that those involved in the illicit drug trade get their due reward paid off once, as an ex-convict from Ethiopian prison has been arrested with cocaine at Lagos Airport. The said ex-convict, Onyeka Charles Madukolo, was apprehended at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos, for importing 5.90 kilograms of cocaine concealed in cans of deodorants and ladies' lip gloss into Nigeria. Onyeka, who was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment in Ethiopia for drug trafficking offenses and released in 2020, was again arrested on Friday, 16 September 2022 at the Lagos Airport on his return from Sao Paulo, Brazil, via Addis Ababa on an Ethiopian airline flight. A search of his luggage revealed he had concealed 5.90 kilograms of cocaine inside cans of deodorants and female lip gloss. During preliminary interview, he claimed to have gone into the drug business to raise fresh capital to start a legitimate business after his release from Ethiopian prison in 2020. The father of 2 kids, one each from a Nigerian woman and a Brazilian lady, said he was into motor spare parts business before going into the criminal trade. The 44-year-old indigene of Awka North local government area of Anambra State said he was expecting to be paid 2 million naira on successful delivery of the illicit drug in Nigeria. Like we admonished weekly on Risking It All, your involvement in the drug trade can only lead to sorrow and anguish, as operatives of the Ndlea are poised to ensure drug dealers and their cohorts lose everything, including their freedom to the drug trade.
Don't do drugs, don't try it though. It go choke you up. When you start it to stop, it no go easy. As you dey drag am go, it dey drag you down. Water come out from my eyes, oh, when I remember the guys, oh, hey, many of them kick it bucket, oh, some cartoons bucket, oh, make we don't forget, oh, so they talk it, oh, say, don't do drugs, rock up your see body, oh, don't do drugs, rock up push your busy body, don't do drugs, if you die, you go sad, oh, help me tell somebody. Say, rock up you see body, oh, the body, oh, the body, oh.
This message is brought to you by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA.
Ondo State Command of the Ndlea has delivered water sensitization lecture at the 2nd annual camp meeting for boys and girls, teenagers of Mount Zion Anglican Church, Igboba, Ado Road, Akure. Ogun State Command paid water advocacy visit to the State Deputy Governor, Mrs. Naimot Salako Oyedele. The Niger State Command of the Ndlea lectured new students of Newgate University, Mina, on dangers of illicit drugs during their orientation program. Ebonyi State Command of the Ndlea takes water advocacy to the palace of His Royal Highness Guru Bala of Ezama Kingdom in Onweke, Eza South local government area. Eze Charles Uma, who is the chairman of Ebonyi State and Southeast Council of Traditional Rulers. The Delta State Command of the Ndlea has paid a water advocacy visit to the Dane of Agbo Kingdom, His Royal Majesty Benjamin Ikechukwu Kegbore Ekuzi I.
Do you know that saying that addiction is a problem of willpower is a myth? This is probably one of the most damaging myths about drug or alcohol addiction. Becoming addicted to drugs is not a problem of willpower or a sign of weakness. Addiction often runs in families and genetics are often to blame. Social factors and untreated mental health issues are all known risk factors for addiction. Drugs interact with the brain on a neurological level, and even if someone wants to stop taking drugs, they will experience painful and sometimes deadly withdrawal symptoms that can make cessation incredibly difficult without outside intervention. Do you know that relapse is not a sign that treatment has been a failure? Addiction is a disease and it is comparable to physical ailments like diabetes or heart disease. Although addiction cannot be cured like many chronic illnesses, it can be successfully managed and treated with ongoing assistance from doctors and therapists. A person with conditions like diabetes will need to attend ongoing doctor's appointments, and so will a person with addiction. Relapse in drug addiction and with other chronic health conditions is part of the journey to getting better and successfully managing health issues.
On the feedback segment today, Godwin Xavier from Warri Delta State wrote, "Why do only some people get addicted to drugs?" This is your answer. It's a great question. Unfortunately, it's not an easy one to answer. Some people are more vulnerable to addiction than others, but it's important for you to remember that anyone at any age can become addicted to drugs. There are several risk factors that can stir an addiction. One major one being early exposure to drugs. Other addiction risk factors can include genetics, the availability of drugs, economic status, and community traumatic life events, poor academic performance, and lack of adult supervision growing up. Chinedu Cletus from Olu, Imo State. Are all drugs addictive? What makes them addictive? Here's your answer. Different drugs have different effects on the brain and body, but in nearly all cases, repeated drug use will lead to addictive behaviors. Again, drug addiction is very likely to occur in teenagers who regularly use and abuse drugs. And that's it on the feedback segment. Please do keep the questions and comments coming. The channel remains NDLEA Today at ndlea.gov.ng or ndlea today at gmail.com. You are welcome. The feedback segment completes our program today. See you again next week. Until then, stay off drugs, my friend. Drugs, not good for you.